Hello and welcome to Lightning Network 101. My name is Santos Hernandez. The goal of this presentation is to share my understanding of the Lightning Network, why we need it, what it is, how it works, and the benefits to you. About Zebedee, the company that I work for, we power real economies and virtual worlds. We help put Bitcoin in games as well as enable various different fintech use cases in the gaming industry. We have 60 plus employees, we're 100% remote, we have combined 50 plus years in fintech and gaming, and we're pioneering new Lightning frontiers. Who am I? I'm Santos Hernandez. I'm the business lead of tech and product at Zebedee. I'm self-taught, an ultra learner, meaning that I pursue my own education in a self-directed and aggressive manner. I've completed tens of MOOCs at this stage, hundreds of books, so entirely self-educated. I'm a hacker, designer, and builder, so I'm a cypherpunk. I like to write code. I like to build things and make impact in the world. Prior to this, I was at Amex as a product owner, working on the global data repository team, basically payments team, and I have about 10 plus years of experience in fintech and financial services. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer version of electronic cash that allows for online payments to be sent directly from one party to another party without going through a financial institution, i.e. bank or payment processor like Visa. Why Bitcoin? Well, it's global, trust minimized, secure, no one's hacked it, transactions are final, meaning no billing disputes or reversals. Your money is yours once the transaction has been confirmed. It's peer-to-peer, so you can directly transact with you and your neighbor. It's permissionless, meaning that you do not need someone's permission to use and participate in Bitcoin. It does not have any sort of stipulations around it like a bank would, where you have to apply for an account. Anyone can download Bitcoin software and use it. Everybody plays by the same rules, the rules defined by the protocol, so it's fair, and it was also launched in a very fair way by Satoshi Nakamoto. It's decentralized, meaning that there's not one party that controls it, and there are people that run the Bitcoin software all over the world. And it's open source, which means that the code base is available for review and usage by everyone for free. And anybody can review and propose innovations. Bitcoin also has the best properties of money ever created. It's perfect preserving your wealth. So Bitcoin compared to other money, you can see that in a number of different categories, Bitcoin is superior compared to gold and fiat currencies, which means by decree currency, so government issued currencies like the US dollar, the pound, etc. Here's a direct comparison to legacy finance, where I came from, and comparing it to Bitcoin, you can see that it all links back to a centralized party where the nodes on this network require permission from that centralized party, whereas Bitcoin's model is distributed and decentralized. So you do not need to trust a third party to use it. You can use it in an entirely sovereign manner. Now let's look at it as preserving purchasing power, or as a money, and you can see that here we have Bitcoin's price in log scale, and you can see that over periods of time, there on the short term can be increases and decreases. Over the long term, though, it's been growing in purchasing power, so it's continuing to increase in value over time. And you can see since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, the dollar purchasing power has only decreased over time. So it's essentially guaranteed to decrease in value. So that's the difference between Bitcoin. Bitcoin's purchasing power goes up, dollar goes down. And this could be construed because the Bitcoin monetary supply schedule is a lot more predictable, and it is actually programmatic and enforced by everyone that runs the Bitcoin software, Whereas you can see that when we rely upon a small number of individuals to make the monetary supply schedule, it's completely unpredictable, and we've had a lot of year-over-year changes, as well as a huge increase in the money supply over the last 10 to 15 years approximately, and it's only accelerating at this pace. Bitcoin is better money technology than any other money that has ever been created. Think of it as digital gold. The problem with Bitcoin is that there's a scalability issue. There can only be 7 transactions per second approximately due to the size of the Bitcoin blocks. You also cannot really purchase things in real time because there's a settlement time. Essentially, you broadcast a transaction to the Bitcoin network. Depending upon the fees that you pay, it can be a pretty wide period of time before your transaction gets confirmed and receives enough confirmation such that it's considered a final transaction. So if you were to buy a cup of coffee in person, you would have to send a Bitcoin transaction or complete a Bitcoin transaction paying another, but it could take 10 plus minutes before it's actually considered safe and completed. That's not really feasible for person-to-person transactions. There are also higher fees on smaller purchases. It's not really economically viable to spend a Bitcoin on-chain for like a $5 transaction. You'll pay a significant amount in fees, such that it would actually be more economical to use like a credit card as an example. There are some potential solutions to these problems. A lot of people, especially in 2013, 2017, and even now, people are pitching altcoins as a way of scaling Bitcoin, like Litecoin being silver to Bitcoin's gold. The problem is that these coins are not nearly as secure nor fairly launched, meaning like everybody had a fair chance to mine the coin, and that there's not a pre-mine where a group of insiders mines the coin before the general public has access to it. In fact, they're mining a significant amount more before they open it up to the public. And then these tend to be centralized rather than decentralized, meaning that a small number of actors control this altcoin. So there's that, and then there's the security aspect that the hash rate, if they're using proof of work, is significantly less than Bitcoin, which makes it susceptible to double spend attacks, as well as proof of stake models where those that do the pre-mine get a bunch of altcoins or tokens beforehand are the ones that have the majority of it, and then they stake this to get essentially voting rights. So there are obviously some big implications in terms of who has control of the network and it not being actually decentralized. And if you have to trust third parties in order to begin using this, and people can dictate or change the monetary supply and the amount created, the total amount created at any time, then it's not really worth building upon. So that pretty much destroys altcoins. There's no reason to build on top of them because of these security weaknesses. Then there was a proposal back in like 2017, 2018 to increase the block size, meaning like the size of a Bitcoin block, and have it scale with Moore's law. The problem is that the requirements to be able to run the Bitcoin software would be ever increasing, limiting a portion of the world that cannot afford this hardware in order to run it, which then leads to centralization problems. Yet again, compromising decentralization, then having to trust third parties again with your money supply, and money supply schedule, which is not ideal. That completely compromises Bitcoin entirely, so that's also not a good solution. So another solution, and the final solution we can look at, is a layer 2 solution like Lightning Network. Lightning Network enables Bitcoin to scale to millions of transactions per second without compromising on hard money, the properties of Bitcoin, relying upon Bitcoin as an arbiter, as well as all of the monetary properties of Bitcoin while retaining its security and decentralization. So it builds on top of Bitcoin. So it's built based on Bitcoin's blockchain, but there's also game theory incentives that make it such that it's incredibly costly to cheat, and there's risk involved where you could lose all of your funds. So there are incentives and disincentives that help guide people's behavior to act in a, how do you say it, positive way, to not cheat. Even though technically people can cheat, they can get a pretty steep penalty for doing so, essentially losing all of their funds. So the capabilities and properties of Lightning enables Bitcoin to become highly scalable, instant, final, and transactions to be very economical at nearly any value, meaning like as low as like 1 Satoshi. So because it's built on Bitcoin, it's global, it's final, it's programmatic, it's interoperable, it's instant, you can do atomic or microtransactions, it's censorship resistant, you can run your own node and open up your own channels to transact or do payments with whomever you would like, it's secure, and the fees are very cheap. So looking at a comparison between Bitcoin Lightning Network and other legacy networks or legacy financial networks, you can see that Bitcoin and Bitcoin's Lightning Network wins nearly in every single category. So it really is objectively better technology based on these metrics. And if you want to look deeper, I can share these slides with you and you can ask any questions, but I don't want to dwell on this slide. So then, use cases of Lightning Network. Well, some areas you can target for commercial or personal projects that you may be interested in working on or using it for is cheaper payment processing, instant irreversible payments, meaning no billing disputes or fraud hassles, new revenue models, distributing opportunity due to global money, so then you can earn from anywhere and you don't have to have, if you have US dollars, you don't have to necessarily worry about not having the ability to pay out in Naira. Everybody speaks the same language of money, which also allows for new interesting transference of money and products and services to be built as a consequence of this. There are some security trade-offs since Lightning Network technically has all hot wallets, the funds can be at risk. So you have to practice good security measures in order to really be secure using Bitcoin's Lightning Network. And it is a newer technology, but I do want to hint at hot wallets can be fixed by hosted channels in the sense that you don't have to have your funds at risk with a hot wallet when using hosted channels. The way I like to describe Lightning is, and this is someone else's analogy, but Lightning is Bitcoin's highway. It's a way to make Bitcoin payments extremely fast, instant, and cheap. Nearly all transactions and payment processing can become cheaper due to this technology, and it can enable, like we talked about before, new features, products, and services as a consequence. What is the Lightning Network? We've been talking a lot about it at this point. Lightning Network, I like to think of it as simply the payment network for Bitcoin. It is open source and permissionless for anyone to participate in, unlike Visa or MasterCard. Here are some key terms that you should be familiar with when discussing the Lightning Network. Satoshis, or sats. Bitcoin is divisible by 100,000. Bitcoin is divisible by 100 million units. This is called a Satoshi. This is named after the anonymous creator Satoshi Nakamoto, and again, it represents 1 out of 100 million units, and it's akin to cents to dollars. Nodes. These are computers that run the Lightning Network software. Bitcoin and Lightning Network nodes are not the same. Lightning Network nodes rely upon a Bitcoin node, but they are not the same software, just to be clear. Channels. This is a financial relationship between two nodes. So node 1 has a channel with node 2 in which they can send and receive Satoshis. Channel balances. This is the ledger between two nodes' financial channels. It gets updated with every payment or payment forward. More on that later. Channel capacity. This is the total size of the Lightning channel. So this could be 1 million sats or 0.01 Bitcoin, they're equivalent. Liquidity. This is the total amount of funds either side can send or receive. So here you can see that there is nearly half send liquidity that one node can send through node 2. And there's nearly half of receive liquidity that node 2 can send to node 1. If all the send liquidity is on one side, then node 2 will not be able to send a payment to node 1. More on that later. Payments. In Bitcoin, we call these transactions. On the Lightning Network, we say payment. It's when user A sends funds to user B. Lightning app. This is the app on your phone that allows you to use the Lightning Network. This could also be a desktop application as well. Routes. A route is a pathway of channels that a node uses to make a payment to an end destination on the Lightning Network. So you can see here that node 1 pays node 3 through node 2. So it sends sats through channel node 1, node 2. Then node 2 forwards the payment to node 3. And node 1 does actually not need to worry about node 3 does not actually need to worry about node 2 stealing their funds at all due to the way that the Lightning Network has been programmed. So that's a nice functionality of the Lightning Network, is node 1 does actually not need a direct relationship to node 3 in order to pay them. They can pay through other nodes, which is called routing in summary. Now, what are invoices? Invoices are payment requests for Lightning Network nodes. What do invoices look like? Well, let's go ahead and take a look. So here you can see they can take the form of a QR code, and this is actually what a Lightning Network invoice looks like. It looks like a bunch of gibberish. It's a string of text, but really it's just payment data. It's actually nothing to be scared of, so let's go ahead and take a look here. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what makes up a Lightning invoice. So you can see the first portion is Lightning Network. You can see which network it's relying upon, which is Bitcoin. You can see the amount here, separator, timestamp, payment hash, description. And I welcome you to delve deeper. You can see all of this yourself on both11.org. But really what I'm trying to showcase here is that there's nothing to be afraid of when you see something like this sort of text. It can look scary, but it actually is not at all. And you can also go deeper. There's plenty of resources here that can be useful for you to check out. Like here's another great site, LND Coder. You can paste in an invoice if you want to look at it before you do anything with it. And then you can see all of the information that's highlighted here. Now putting it all together, how does one create a channel for the Lightning Network using Bitcoin? Well, first, node 1 and node 2 will broadcast a Bitcoin transaction. Once the transaction has been confirmed, the channel will be established, and now node 1 and node 2 can pay each other through the Lightning Network channel. And this is backed by actual Bitcoin from a Bitcoin transaction. So this is kind of what it looks like when a payment first gets established. Node 1 will have all of the send liquidity to node 2. So in order to have the ability to also receive Bitcoin, node 2 could open a channel with node 1. So they have received liquidity. Node 1 can also pay for received liquidity. Lastly, node 1 could send some payments to node 2, changing the liquidity. Or alternatively route some payments through Node 2 to be able to then receive Bitcoin payments or Bitcoin Lightning Network payments. So that's what it looks like in a nutshell. You can take the same model between Node 1 and Node 2 and extend it out to this, a network of financial relationships. All the colored dots represent nodes running the Bitcoin software, and it's very interconnected, just like one of the first graphs that I showed. Now, what this enables is providers can speak the same language of money, previously not possible with the legacy system due to the fact that it is not permissionless, it is permissioned. For example, Cash App cannot talk to Venmo even though they're both speaking US dollars. But Zebedee app could talk to any Lightning app and vice versa. So Zebedee can talk to Cash App can talk to Wallet of Satoshi, or Open Bitcoin Wallet, and vice versa. We're all speaking the same language of Lightning and payment requests, i.e. invoices, and everybody's able to transact with one another because of that. Putting it all together, what does an actual full flow of a payment look like? So on the left side here, we have phone 1 and phone 2. So phone 1 will provide an invoice. Remember, that's payment request information. So phone 1 is giving a payment request or invoice to phone 2. And now what's happening behind the scenes is there's a network of these financial relationships or channels. So you can see here we have receive liquidity for node 1 on this side, and the empty space, and then the send liquidity on the purple bar is what node 1 is able to send to node 2. So let's see how phone 2 pays phone 1 and what this flow might look like. Okay, there we go. And now the funds have been sent through node 1 to the destination node, and you can see as that process was happening, the channel liquidity was adjusted as the payment was successful. And now phone 1 has been paid by phone 2. Now what happens if a payment isn't successful? So there's no route for node 1 to pay the destination node. Therefore, the payment does not complete. This could be due to actually a few different reasons. It could be due to the lack of liquidity, no route being able to be found, or an offline node. So now node 1 was not able to pay the destination node, i.e. phone 1 was not able to get paid by phone 2. And payments either succeed or fail on the Lightning Network. There is no in between. Putting it all together, now let's say a node wants to end a financial relationship. Between node 1 and node 2, they've done all of the payments that they've wanted to do, and now they're ready to get their funds back on chain where it's spendable on the Bitcoin network. So what they would do is they would broadcast a closing transaction, and then this financial relationship, once the transaction's confirmed, will be ended, and they will no longer be able to send and receive through this financial relationship. It'll be considered ended at that point in time. And whatever the remaining state is for liquidity is what will get refunded. So for example, if there was a 1 million sat channel between node 1 and node 2, and node 1 had 500,000 of send liquidity and node 2 had 500,000 receive liquidity, then at that point in time, they would both receive 500,000 sats, or whatever the distribution is for the channel. So this enables all sorts of new sort of transactions, new products and services, and ultimately peer-to-peer transactions, achieving electronic cash. Now, if you want to get started using the Lightning Network, you can go ahead and download the Zebedee app. Here's an example of what payments look like. Once you have it downloaded, registered, and installed, you also could use another sort of app, which I have a few recommendations on. One in particular is Wallet of Satoshi. You can go ahead and confirm and pay. Between both of these applications, you'll get advanced Lightning features that make it even easier than this to use. And from there, the payment, as you saw, was successful. And that's how easy it is to actually use the Lightning Network using these applications. All of this complexity is abstracted behind these apps, and it's quite easy, even running your own node, if you dedicate a sufficient amount of time to learning. That's what payments look like. And to summarize, the Lightning Network is a peer-to-peer network of channels, financial relationships that enable Bitcoin to scale to millions of transactions per second in an economically feasible manner for nearly any amount. I would say to get a Lightning app, I would recommend the Zebedee app. I am a bit biased. Feel free to look at other alternatives like Moon or Wallet of Satoshi. But I would say as a beginner, just learning about Bitcoin's Lightning Network, it might be easier to use the Zebedee app. We optimize for user experience and simplicity. All right, now if you're looking to be a sovereign individual and you're at intermediate level expertise, I would suggest getting either one of these applications depending upon what type of phone that you have. For iOS, I'd recommend the Phoenix wallet. This is both a Bitcoin and Lightning Network wallet that allows you to control your own private key. And the recommendation I would have for sovereign individuals related to Android devices would be Open Bitcoin Wallet. This is a wallet that we've built upon at NBD, an open source initiative by Zebedee, that you can use that is also a Bitcoin and Lightning Network wallet with hosted channel support. So this enables new economically feasible ways of scaling up sovereign individuals, and we support that functionality. You also have your own private key with recovery phrase in case you lose access to your device or anything like that without having to trust any third parties. So highly recommend either one of these applications depending upon the device that you have. Now, if you want to connect with me, you can check out my own personal site is www.santos.lol. And then if you want to send me some funds to my Lightning address, please feel free to. It's santos@zbd.gg. I'm sure I will end up giving those sats away to onboarding new Bitcoiners. And thank you so much for your help. My lovely wife, Heidi, the authors of Mastering Lightning. I couldn't have done this presentation without building on top of your work. My team at Zebedee, a few individuals that I'd like to mention, Zach, Luis, Ian, Matt, Barack, and others that gave me countless rounds of feedback that I really appreciate. And the NBD team, Andre Nevis and Fiat Joff, really appreciate you guys always answering my questions as it relates to Lightning and helping me learn all of this stuff. Lastly, the Arizona Bitcoin Network community. Without your support and encouragement, I also wouldn't have been able to do this. You guys motivate and inspire me. Really appreciate all of you here locally at the Arizona Bitcoin Network. That's it. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I hope that you got value from it. Thank you again, and take care.